evening, viewers of Tempo Africa TV, the only Pan-African web-based broadcasting outlet that promotes people, associations, institutions, and companies who are working to help revitalize Africa as a united, prosperous, powerful, and sovereign continent. Welcome to our show, What's Up Africa, Kefel Afrique. Please join me today in welcoming two distinguished fellow Africans and esteemed colleagues of mine from the University of Fort Hare in the Mandela, South Africa we know. First, Dr. Tozama April Maduma, Senior Curator at the National Heritage and Cultural Studies Center, University of Fort Hare. She holds a PhD in history with a thesis that focuses on the early history of Black intellectuals. Her research covers themes in African history, emphasizing Black feminist thinkers in Africa and in the diaspora. Second, Dr. Vulindlela Godfrey Mona, who holds a PhD in isiXhosa literature from Rhodes University. I tried to make that click right. South Africa. He is an educator, researcher, translator, and a writer. Dr. Mona is currently the director of the University of Fort Hare Language Center. It's a faculty of social science and humanities. Our discussion today, ladies and gentlemen, is about his language center that we call so fondly a model language center at historic Fort Hare University in the Republic of South Africa. Welcome to What's Up Africa, Dr. Monet and April Maduma, and thank you for accepting our invitations.
Thank you.
We have a few questions for you today, starting with their self-introductions. So if you could please speak up, and we'll start with, as they say, ladies first. Dr. April Maduma.
Thank you, Professor Balobi. It is a great pleasure for me to be presenting South Africa on your show today. I look forward to a fruitful discussion and an engagement that begins to perhaps chart a way forward for further engagements with your faculty as well as the rest of the viewers this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome to our show. This is Tempo Africa TV, and this is What's Up Africa. Second, Dr. Mona.
Letter is closed. Elenga kwi-University enembali i-Fort Hare njengengqonyela yeziko lelwimi yaqolotha inochulumanco nemincili lokuthabatha inxaxheba kule nkqubo iququzelelwa ingcungela nengcaphephe yelwimi uNjingalwazi Balobi. Yanqula kuqamata ukuba ayisikelele le nkqubo ilunquthu isixhobisa ngolwazi. Prof. Balobi, that was just giving you a taste of our beautiful isiXhosa speech with its unique clicks, which I think you have noted. In English, I am saying, good afternoon, America. Good evening, South Africa. I am Dr. Vulindlela Godfrey Mona. My mother tongue is isiXhosa. I am employed by the historic University of Fort Hare as the director of the Language Center. I am thrilled with joy to be a participant in this program that is coordinated by the linguist, Professor Balobi. I invite the Almighty, the Alpha and the Omega, to bless the constructive program that seeks to equip all of us with knowledge. I thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. April Maduma and Dr. Mona. You took me back home. I'm right here, Virginia Beach in the United States, in the state of Virginia, but you took me back home. The ancestors are with us today and they will help us. You pray so beautifully, and that went through my heart. Thank you, both of you, for coming to this show. Our, the first question will go to ladies first, as I said earlier on. Dr. Maduma, would you please give us a brief history of UFH, University of Fort Hare? Talk a little bit about Vice Chancellor. I happen to bump into her name, and that's Dr. Sakela Bukulungu. Please, a brief history of this historic university.
Thank you, Prof. Balobi. Fort Hare is one of the oldest universities in Southern Africa. It was established in 1916, but currently it is a leading institution in agricultural sciences. It is ranked the 16th out of the 26 universities in South Africa. Fort Hare has a population of students that is estimated at about 9,500 students. It offers degrees in the following faculties: Faculty of Management and Commerce, the Health and Sciences, Social Science and Humanities, Science and Agriculture, and Law. That is just a brief synopsis of the ratings of the university currently. Of course, as you have stated, we are led by a very esteemed leader, Professor Sakela Bukulungu, a very dedicated leader who has served at various capacity at universities in different parts of this country. He has served the University of Witwatersrand. He has also served at the University of Cape Town before coming to the University of Fort Hare. In all positions, an outstanding leader who has showed very good leadership qualities in face of adversity, led at very difficult times in our education sector. So we are fortunate to have had him at the time of the COVID-19, which has really affected the education sector quite severely. But in terms of the institutional culture of Fort Hare, Fort Hare positions itself as a credible institution of higher learning. It thinks of itself as an African university. It has, throughout its history, been in contact with the rest of the continent. It has also established itself as the hub of major socio-economic and political events that have shaped the history of Southern Africa, while also actively involved in the rest of the continent. So South Africans have always seen Fort Hare as a place that offers sanctuary at the time of very kind of difficult times, which has given Fort Hare a very unique character as an institution of higher learning. Fort Hare has also established itself in the wider networks of Africans in the diaspora. So this institutional culture developed and evolved over time since Fort Hare's inception in 1916. Just a brief background about the formation of Fort Hare. It was founded at the time when the educational facilities for Africans were very still scanty. As you will remember, throughout the continent, Africa's history of colonial invasion had resulted in a systemic dehumanization of Africans. And the provision of education in colonial Africa was, especially here in the South, was initiated by missionaries. So Forte's early history emanates from that period of missionary zeal. So from its early history as an institution that was influenced by missionary activities that were taking place here, Forte has forged for itself a unique character. It has forged itself as a character that allows it to be a center for the perfection and the excellence of Africans. How did this character come about? As I've indicated that in colonial Africa, education was used as a means to keep Africans in their proper place, as they said. So it was meant to keep Africans away from competing with colonialists in the market center, if you like. So mission education was provided in as far as it allowed the missionaries to propagate Christianity. So out of that history, Forte forged for itself a unique character that allowed Africans to excel in who they were and who they are. So that is one of the unique characters that the university has. So it promotes an Africanness that is rooted in the ideals, the philosophies, the cultures, and the heritage of Africa, while in dialogue and in conversation with the rest of the world. Now, if we look into the history of Forte, its very early history, founded on missionary values, Forte has always strived to promote African ideals. What we see in the first half of the 20th century, there was an outward migration of Africans from the continent who went to seek higher education in educational centers abroad, in Europe first and in the US. Forte's history is also in that context of the Union government seeking to curb the outward migration of students. So they wanted to establish Forte to prevent Africans from acquiring higher education in foreign countries, as they said. But at that time, there were a number of Africans who had already been in the diaspora. African leaders such as Langalibalele Dube, who studied at Oberlin in the US. He returned to South Africa and established a school at Ohlange. We also witnessed the first Black African graduate, a woman from South Africa, Charlotte Maxeke, who had gone to the US, established herself as an educator, a missionary, a Black feminist thinker, who returned to South Africa as well and established a number of initiatives that sought to uplift the Africans. We also witnessed Alfred Bitini Kuma, who had also studied from the University of Minnesota in the Midwest over there. He returned to South Africa and became the first medical doctor. So the University of Forte emerges in that context of seeking to provide Africans with the opportunity to educate Africans, but also at the same time, at the time when politically the whole issue of provision of education to Africans was still used for political ends by the government of the time. And out of that context, Africans who had acquired education abroad came back and established independent schools. But Forte had produced some of the early African writers at the time who had also gone through the corridors of the institution. Writers such as A.C. Jordan, who had written quite a number of literary works in isiXhosa. Walter Hubusana, a number of other African literary writers, Dr. Mona will expatiate on those, would have gone through the corridors of Forte. It has also produced a number of African leaders. It is rated as one of the institutions of higher learning in Southern Africa, which has produced a number of heads of states.
Yeah, having talked about, all of that, I think you're doing a wonderful job. And we will come back to you, Dr. Maduma. I hate to interrupt you. This sets the stage, it sets a stone for us. And I'm not even going to ask Dr. Mona to add anything, because after all, he's not as good as you are with history. You are definitely the best, Dr. Maduma. My personal comments, and I did the research, you were right. Forte is a historic university. And in terms of excellence, ranking 16 out of 26 in South Africa. And what is even most impressive, 37 out of 1,107 in the whole continent of Africa. That's a big name, Forte University. Today, having created that context, we will focus on the Language Center, that is under Dr. Mona's leadership. And you were talking about leaders, and let me remind people that a notable alumni, including Oliver Tambo, went to that university. Nelson Mandela went to that university. I know there is another university called Nelson Mandela University, right? It ranks right after Forte, or I can't remember if before or after, but they're side by side. So Oliver Tambo, Nelson Mandela was mentioning Oliver Tambo, my comrade. He went to that university. So did Bishop Desmond Tutu. Say another big name, Mangosuthu Buthelezi. That we knew him as the leader of the Inkatha Freedom Party. And Robert Mugabe, Julius Nyerere, Kenneth Kaunda, and Mary Malahela, the first female black doctor in South Africa. You would agree with me, folks, that this indeed is the university. And the next question will go to Dr. Mona, the Language Center. In such a historic university, that's a big challenge. How are you doing this, Dr. Mona? What are the goals? And show us how they align with the institution's goals and the strategic plan of this historic university. Dr. Mona.
Thank you, Professor Balobi. Strategy flows from the Constitution, and I would like to start there, at the level of the Constitution with the Language Center. The Constitution of the Republic of South Africa identifies 11 indigenous languages. Taking into account the usage, the practicality, the expense, regional circumstances, and balance of needs of communities. The right to receive education in the official languages or languages, in the official language, people to acquire education in their own language of choice, in public education. The Constitution also guarantees the right of use of language of choice. From that level of the Constitution, the government, the Department of Higher Education, drafted a language policy framework for South African higher education in 2001. I won't get into details regarding that, but it contains a framework to promote multilingualism and equity of access to higher education. Other pieces of legislation were drafted, based on the Constitution. For instance, the National Arts and Culture Department drafted the official Use of Official Languages Act, and also, you know, the province of the Eastern Cape, also at the provincial level, drafted an act which establishes language units in provincial departments and so on. It is against that background, you know, that the language center is established. And it is very, very critical for us to understand the holistic strategy, you know, of the university, the holistic strategy of the delivering, you know, on the language policy. I shall make use of the symbol of the cast iron three-legged pot, Professor. The Language Center is supported by 3 institutes in the university. Very effective, very efficient institutes. One, Isiposa Department, which is for learning and teaching. There is also at Forte a lexicography unit, which is responsible for developing multilingual and monolingual dictionaries. There's a unit that is represented here today by Dr. April NAHEX, National Heritage and Cultural Studies Center. You know, these 3 units, I say, are the very strong legs that ensure that the implementation of the language policy is successful, is effective and efficient. I can also argue that the Language Center, presenting this differently, is the nexus of the development of languages at the university. The nexus is the center. It coordinates these activities, the lexicography activity, the teaching and learning, the National Heritage and Cultural Studies Center. And the mandate comes from the language policy of the university. And having these units, which are autonomous, independent, these 3 units, is very strategic. I know that at some quarters we would get criticism, but for purposes of sustainability, you know, and this is a good strategy in the sense that these units have different funding streams, internal and external. So if one funder pulls out, the strategy of the university doesn't collapse, because the university is there to run with the other entities and so on and so on. And our funders, good funders, Department of Higher Education and Training is there. Department of Sport, Arts and Culture is there. And also the PEN South African Language Board, which is funding the lexicography unit. I argue that the Language Center is for coordination of efforts, you know, in the university of development of languages, for multilingualism for the purposes of scholarship, for economic development and social justice through the recognition of linguistic human rights. The values of the center, Prof, let me quickly get to the values, are aligned to the values of the university. Okay. Let's come to the objectives, because your question mentioned objectives briefly, the objectives of the center. Acceleration and implementation of the University of Forte language policy. That is very important, the central function. And acceleration of development and intellectualization of the previously marginalized isiXhosa language. That is another objective. Teaching and supervision of postgraduate students. Another objective, language and literature development through research, translation, and publishing. Lastly, but not least, objective, community outreach. Because the university must not be an ivory tower. We have to interact with society, with humanity, for social cohesion and economic development. Let me stop there. I think I've tried to answer your question.
Thank you very much. That actually justified the way you kick off this interview. That's so beautiful. And let me go back to uh, Dr. Maduma. You mentioned those founders, those who had the ideas, of building this historic university, people who went abroad and came back, and you put us in that historical context. You created that for us, which to me speaks volume of the role of the diaspora as well. And I'm sure that Mona will have contact or some strong connection with what the African diaspora is doing here in the United States. Here in the United States, there is this really superb association called African Language Teachers Association, ALTA, okay? And we hold annual conferences. And that's where I ran into Dr. Mona, who gave a brilliant presentation. And we all went like, wow, wow. So I see the connection between America, the diaspora, and South Africa, and more specifically, Forte University. You are a historian. Has it been like this all the time, looking back in history? Or if not, what has changed? What brought about this beautiful, positive change? What is it?
Thank you, Prof. Well, I would say from my brief historical research in that period, there was a wider network that existed in the early 20th century. And I think to a large extent, there were intellectual networks that cut across various spheres, from religious communities, educational fraternities, and political figures who had interacted with leaders on both sides of the Atlantic, as they would say. So there has been a tradition of intercontinental dialogue between Africans in Africa, in the diaspora, and in the US. That tradition exists, but what one has observed from historical writings, those networks have not been explored in terms of documenting that history. There's very little done with regards to documenting the histories of these cross-continental networks that served as the kind of areas that nurtured ideas, areas where people from different parts of the world could interact and exchange ideas. So that history is yet to be exhausted, as I always say, that there has been that tradition, but it has been documented.
And we are doing it. We're making history happen, and it's your job. You will start documenting this history, building the bridge, continuing with that tradition or reinforcing this tradition. And Dr. Mona, you got to network with ALTA, all the ALTA leadership and members, so that you show your example. And that's why we're talking about your language center today. And let me go back to him. He talked about a language policy. What is the status of ISIC-COSA in South Africa, nationwide, in relation to South Africa, or local language policy in particular?
Let me, in trying to answer that question, I wish to get to the statute of the university, which recommends a language policy that promotes multilingualism. The language of tuition, we have agreed, will be English, except where a particular language is taught in which event that language will also be used. Languages of communication at the university, English and isiXhosa, depending on the nature of communication and practicability, underlying practicability. The university is committed to promoting multilingualism and academic development of official languages of South Africa through its program, particularly the indigenous languages. And in this instance, isiXhosa, because it's the language, it's the dominant language of the area. You know, we have agreed on these languages because, as you know, English is the language of communication. We are meeting one another now, you know, through the medium of English, the language of communication throughout the world. But isiXhosa is the dominant language of the Eastern Cape, and therefore we have to ensure that it's developed. Also, Africans, you know, the Hare and the San descendants who speak Afrikaans, who have lost their Hare and San language. And therefore, Africans also, we are developing in the university, and we are ensuring that, you know, students who speak Afrikaans, you know, are assisted where it is practical. Maybe that's what how I can respond to that question.
Very good. Thank you very much. And Dr. Maduma, you know the role of women in our society, okay? All right. So we're talking about the role of women. They work really hard. Yeah? They work hard. And when we're promoting languages, we cannot, I mean, there's no way around women. Women in the kitchen, women at the marketplace, women everywhere being at the forefront of actually our social, political, and especially economic development. That is the goal, to develop Africa better than it has been developed so far. So from a historical perspective, the role of South African languages, you know, and what role have those languages played in the socioeconomic development in general from the historical perspective? And I will go back to Mona for him to say, you know, in the South Africa's education system, the role of South African languages or African languages in general. So let me give you the floor first, Dr. Maduma.
Thank you, Prof, with that question. Just to answer that question, the National Heritage and Cultural Studies Center at the University of Fort Hare, which is where I'm based, we also are a repository of archival material. Now, in terms of the documentation of the contributions of women to society, we preserve a range of archival material, artifacts that reflect and document the contributions of women to society. Women in the arts, women in literary works. We recently received a collection of the papers of Phyllis Ntandala, who has made a mark in the literary world. So there are several collections that depict the contributions of women in society, which are preserved as part of the national heritage that begins to acknowledge and also preserve that history, that begins to acknowledge the contributions of women in society. So the National Heritage Cultural Studies Center of the University of Fort Hare is mindful of some of the gaps that we have had in the past in terms of not documenting and acknowledging enough the contributions of women in society. But to rectify that, we need to make sure that even in terms of archival material, because that is where much of the kind of research is generated, when we have archival material that documents the contributions of women in society, then we can be rest assured that for future references, our children would know that our mothers, our forebears contributed this much to society, and we continue to carry on with that legacy.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mona. Now, the role of African and South African languages in South African education system. Anything you want to share with us?
Yes. Let me make reference to the language policy of the university, which strives to contribute towards excellence in teaching, learning, and assessment. Whilst English remains the medium of instruction at both undergraduate and postgraduate levels, we are determined to develop isiXhosa and introduce it progressively as an additional medium of instruction. We are working towards ensuring that written course material and terminology lists are developed and supplied to the students and the lecturers. We want to develop glossaries working together with the lexicography unit. For instance, we developed together, a strategy of mobilizing resources for the development of the glossaries. Where possible, we are saying translation and interpreting into isiXhosa can take place, and we are saying to lecturers, we have a program for those who wish to be able to communicate in the language. We have a program which is interactive. One can at his or her own leisure time can learn the language, because we are saying, code switching, code mixing, or what we call translanguaging, can be done in class, because what we want to achieve is for students to understand the concepts and not to be memorizing and regurgitating, not at the university. We would like to assist them. We are a rural university. Most of our students come from the rural areas. We know that their competence in English leaves much, to be desired. The language policy, allows isiXhosa to be a language of research and also a language of administration, a language, of labor relations and so on and so on. And therefore, we are committed to ensuring that, we develop the language and we ensure that it assists us, in the teaching and learning at the university.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. You mentioned multilingualism. The University of Fort really wants to promote multilingualism. I don't know any African who is not fluent in at least 3 languages. So does that mean that isiXhosa and multilingualism across the curriculum at the UFH is going to be, or is already a reality? Is that what it is?
Not yet a reality. We are moving towards that. We are moving towards that. And I would argue that African languages has a role in South Africa's education system. And with the impetus that is given to us, language developers, language practitioners, by the Department of Higher Education and Training, language policy framework for public higher education institutions, which was gazetted on the 30th of October 2020. It gives us, the energy, the power, the zeal, the determination to brace forward. In the sense that its purpose is to provide a framework for the development and strengthening of indigenous languages, languages of scholarship, teaching, learning, and communication at higher education institutions. And government commits to supporting the development, commits fully behind us. And they've demonstrated that by providing resources for infrastructure. For instance, the Language Center is now building its second language laboratory, for the East London campus. We have one in Alice, and there's support, financial support to support the progress. We are having discussions at COPAL at a higher level where all the universities come together as a community of practice, where we strategize on how to move forward to achieve this goal. I think it's going to be a process. It might take time, but we are committed and we are determined to work hard to ensure that we realize our goal.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. And I think your language center and South Africa in general, you are doing a fantastic job. I just want you to keep it up, and personally, and you, Dr. Maduma, you, Dr. Mona, personally, congratulations. Please hold hands and continue to work hard as you have been doing. Please connect to Alta. Alta is doing a lot of good work, but Alta cannot do it without you, without Africa. That's what I call a sociolinguistic paradox. If we're teaching African languages in the US, and those languages are not being taught and learned officially in the education system of our African countries, I call that a sociolinguistic paradox. And Alta is working to build in that bridge. And you too are also working, at the local level, but let's make it a call. This is an official call for all of us Africans, because Africa will never develop socially, politically, and economically and become sovereign if we continue to think and to write and to sing in the colonizers' language and cultures. You are proving to the world that, yes, we can. And you certainly are taking the lead with Nigeria, with their, I would say, Ghana, Kenya, most English-speaking countries. I'm so proud of you. I'm from a French-speaking part of the continent. We, feel flattered when people say to us, "Oh, what a beautiful French you speak." No, that's not the way to go. We're not rejecting multilingualism, as Donna actually pointed out, because that gives you multiple windows to the outside world. No wonder the US here is trying to learn African languages, because they want to have opportunities, to better understand the outside world. We now are at the stage where we want to better understand ourselves and be proud of who we are. And let's continue promoting that kind of attitude and approach. I may not have asked all the questions. We have just a few minutes left. Anything you haven't said that you were burning, you really wanted to say in just a minute or two, either Dr. Mona or Dr. Maduma. Yes, go ahead and say it. And that will be your concluding statement. And anything you want to say to us, to Alta, to the rest of the world about South Africa, Forte University, and the Language Center. Go ahead.
Thank you, Alta, for affording us an opportunity to exposing us and affording us an opportunity to speak to the American community and our African brothers. We wish to make an earnest appeal, a plea, an imploration to our brothers and sisters in America to share the skills, experience to plow back to Mother Africa, or to make representations to our students, for our students and young academics to build their capacity. We have joined the program to make a clarion call, Dr. Balobi, for collaboration, for partnership, for twinning agreements, for exchange programs. We are not here to be looking for gains and not giving. We wish to share what we have, the knowledge that we have. The Department of African Languages, which is led by Professor Satyo, can get into detail on how, America can assist us with human language technology or computational linguistics. NAHEX, Professor Wachela and Dr. April, digitization of archives, conservation of print and non-print material. The lexicography unit, Ms. Adonis, who is acting there, said to me, digitization of their monolingual and multilingual dictionaries is important. Just to show you the thick document, we would like to, these dictionaries that we have produced, to digitize them so that they are accessible to the world. That is the closing remarks there. Support us in our struggle to restore the dignity of South Africans through the development of the erstwhile marginalized indigenous languages. The announcement, ALASA conference, hybrid conference, 25 to 27 September 2021. We invite all our colleagues to join us. The last word, Ike Karake, diverse people unite. That is the calm language of the indigenous Khoi and Sign, who bequeathed to isiXhosa the click sounds. This is the coat of arms of the Republic of South Africa. Inkosi, Yabulela. Thank you very much. Thank you, America.
Thank you. Dr. April Maduma.
Well, in concluding, I would really thank you, Professor Balobi, and the program for having afforded us the opportunity to interact with you, and also wish to add on what my colleague has said, that ours is to look for potential collaborations, knowing very well that it is through that kind of interactive work that we can all, in joining hands, ensure that we live in a better world, in a world where values of humanity, of embracing each other, will prevail. So with those few words, I also wish to add on to the show to say thank you for affording us the platform to interact, and also possibly getting further kind of collaborative work that we can begin to develop going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I think all those things will go to Temple Africa TV and to Kefel Afrique WhatsApp Africa as a show inside of the bigger spectrum of Temple Africa TV. We also share the same thanks and feelings of gratitude. We're sending them to our producer, Mr. Malik Sal. We also thank Zoli, the president, former president of Alta, thanks to whom I was able to connect with Dr. Mona very quickly. So thank you, Alta former president. Thank you, Mariam, who is the current president as well. They're like twin sisters that work hand in hand, and they are making strides to excellence, emulating South Africa's Fort Hare University. Now, let me say Africans, people of African descent, Pan-Africans and friends of Temple Africa TV, should you know of any talented person like these colleagues of mine, and I know they will come back, should they, have other things to say, or should they be kind enough as to talk to their colleagues across the university to come to us and share what they've been doing, we will appreciate it, okay? And institutions, organizations who are involved in innovative projects with the potential to transform lives in Africa, or if you individually or as a company or as an association, as an institution, if you're willing to support Temple Africa TV, Temple Africa TV will support these people that we're promoting because they are on the right track. Okay, you want to support Temple Africa TV because you like our WhatsApp Africa, Kafel Africa initiative, please let us know via email africtv@gmail.com or simply call right now 612-224-2020. Why wait? Promoting Africa, institutions, the people, positive thinking, and transformative innovations is our business. Ladies and gentlemen, humbled and privileged to host this weekly show. I'm humbly Prof. Desiree Balube from Norfolk State University in Virginia, USA. Thank you for watching today, and may God bless you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Nouveau à Minneapolis, Tempo Afrique Travel. Vous voulez voyager? Achetez vos billets d'avion à l'agence de voyage Tempo Afrique Travel. Avec l'agent de voyage Tempo Afrique Travel, pas de problème de connexion, pas de problème de transfert de vol. Avec l'agent de voyage Tempo Afrique Travel, c'est le voyage en toute tranquillité, en toute beauté, de votre maison jusqu'à votre destination. Votre satisfaction est notre plaisir.